Peace to the collective. I've been fighting the sinus cold for a minute. That's why y'all hadn't seen me for a second. Well, I've been fighting this infection or whatever. I've been, on YouTube, and I've been watching a lot of the Moorish Americans, or the Moorish Science Temple, and I've been really watching some things that's been going down, and I know how the disagreeable forces work, or these agents work, and I had sat back and I was just watching these videos of what is the brother's name, Tariq Bey, or I might be saying it wrong, I'm not sure, but I just been watching, and I had talked to my dad. I had talked to him on the phone, and I asked him about Noble Drew Ali, and I said to my dad, I said, well, Noble Drew Ali, I said, where is he originally from? You know what I mean? And my dad said, that's a good question. He said, now my dad is 76 years old, okay? And if any information that I need that goes way back, I usually go to him and I ask him about it, So when I asked him about Noble Drew Ali, the first thing my dad said was, that's a good question. He said, I'm not sure, but he said that Noble Drew Ali, or Timothy, he didn't even say Noble Drew Ali. I said Noble Drew Ali when I asked him, but my dad said, oh, Timothy Drew. He said, well, Timothy Drew was well rehearsed in law, okay? So it got me to do some investigation on Timothy Drew. And what I found out, that I noticed that the Moorish Science Temple keeps leaving out, is you don't talk about his mother or his father. You know what I mean? And Noble Drew Ali he worked for a circus. He was a magician for a circus, and he ran with some gypsies. Okay. Also, he had the opportunity to go to some various places overseas, and he learned Eastern philosophy. You know what I mean? Now, as far as what I'm reading, and as far as what I'm being educated on through my father, and what I'm doing the research on Timothy Drew, aka Noble Drew Ali, is that he only came back. His main purpose was to come back to introduce Islam to the Western world. All this other stuff that's coming out, I don't get it. You know what I mean? These IDs and this nationality. Why y'all concentrating on nationality? You need to be concentrating on your identity. Because that's putting you back in slavery, trying to claim your nationality. That don't even make any sense, So, what the question that I have for the Moorish Americans, or so-called Moorish Americans, the question that I have is, why is anybody not talking about his mother and his father? Now, his father was John A. Drew Quitman, and he was a Cherokee. He was a Cherokee, responsible for the military, and he was a political leader. Now, his mother's name was Eliza Turner Quitman, and she was full-blooded Washita Tanuka Indian. So where's this Moorish thing coming from? You know what I mean? Now, this is the reason why I say You cannot mix your heritage with religion. The two don't go together. We're talking about your heritage. He only came here, Noble Drew Ali, Timothy Drew only came here to introduce Islam to the Western world, the Western people, or indigenous people. That's what he came to do. Now, he was well influenced, he was well educated in law, you know, but what I see certain Moorish Americans doing, I don't think that that was what his, I don't think that that's what his job was. You know, I don't think that that's what he came to do. You know what I mean? As far as when y'all are getting into this law and everything, I'm not, you know, I know that there are agents out here, you know what I mean? And, you know, the clan mothers had told me, do not mix the two. Do not mix the Moorish American with your heritage. You know, that was number one on the roster. That was number one. Do not mix it, you know? And I have come across some Moors, you know, so-called Moors, that are not aware of who they truly are as indigenous American Indians. And the time when I was in jail for standing up for my indigenous human rights, you know, I had met a Moor in jail, you know, and he had found out about me, you know, and what they had locked me up for, you know what I mean? They were trying to make a political statement to the United Nations during that time when I had got locked up, you know, and they wanted to give me 12 months. They thought I had read something off a computer, read something out of a book about, you know, my indigenous rights, or, you know, I guess they were under the assumption that I was trying to claim myself as a Moor, and that was not true, you know what I mean, or claim myself as a sovereign citizen. I never said that in the courtroom. I said that I was indigenous American Anasazi Indian, okay? But to make a long story short, when I was in jail, I had ran across a brother that was claiming sovereign citizen. And what I found out while I was in jail is that if you claim sovereign citizen in the state of Georgia, you waive your rights, okay? They have a whole plan set up for Moorish Americans, man, to label them as terrorists, okay? That, you know, and my question still is to, you know, the Moorish Science Temple, my question still is that y'all not talking about the fact that his mother and father was Indian, was indigenous American Indian. They stated, even when I did the research, they stated that his father was Cherokee, and he was responsible for the military, and he was of the Cherokee Nation, and he was a political leader. Now his mother was Eliza Turner Quitman, and she was full-blooded Washita Tanuka Indian. Why are y'all leaving that out? So what I sense is some bullshit there. You know what I mean? There's some bullshit. Somebody is trying to make a financial gain. Religion has always had a financial gain in it. That's why they don't get rid of it. Okay? And I don't want the people to become distracted to this Moorish thing, because if you put yourself in that situation, man, you're putting yourself right back into the United States of America's government. Okay? Minor. You know, not the United States Corporation Major, but the United States Corporation Minor. Okay? And I'll get into that a little bit later on, about the major and the minor of the two. They're working off of they're working off of two different governments. They're actually controlling two different governments. Okay? One doesn't have anything to do with the other. You know? And you can find that out on the what is it called? It's called the General Civil Order. The matter of fact, the information that was passed to from the Pope Francis or something like that. It was passed to, no, Pope Francis gave it to Obama. But if you could check it out, you can Google it. It's called the General Civil Order. You know what I mean? And you'll find out a lot of deceit and fraud that's been going on. Okay? But I still need the Moorish, I think I still need these Moorish Americans to tell me why they left out the fact that Noble Drew Ali, Timothy Drew's parents were Indigenous American Indian. Why are y'all leaving that out? And y'all concentrating strictly on Moors. And then, you know, when I got to thinking about it, you know, when he set up, before it became the Moorish Science Temple, it was actually called the Canaanite Temple. Now, see, this is why I don't like to mix religion. You know, I don't like to mix religion with the heritage. But I gotta state these things. You know, I gotta ask these questions to the Moorish Americans. Is why did he claim it as the Canaanite Temple when in Islam, the Canaanites, if you remember in the story of Noah used to drink, and he would get drunk in his tent, and sometimes he would fall asleep naked. Well, Ham, his son, used to go into his tent and watch his father while he slept. Well, Ham's two other brothers, Noah's two other sons, because apparently he had 3 sons. Well, when they found out what Ham was doing, when the other 2 brothers found that Noah had been drinking and he was drunk and he was naked in his tent, they turned their backs. One grabbed one side of the blanket and the other brother grabbed the other side of the blanket, and they walked backwards to put the blanket over their father's nakedness. But when they found out what Ham was doing, watching his father while he sleep naked, when Noah found out about it through his sons, Noah had cursed his seed. And he said, "Cursed be Canaan." So you had what is called the 11 houses of Canaanites. And Canaanites, when Canaan was born, he had cursed Ham's seed. This is within the scriptures. He had cursed Ham's seed. So when the child was born, Canaan was born, he was born with leprosy, and he was an albino. He was a paleface. Now, through the generations of those 11 houses of Canaan, or the 11 houses of the Canaanites, some of them had pale-face blood, but they look like you and I. That's why I was saying separating the wheat from the tear, because everybody that looks like us ain't us, and they got pale-face blood running through them, through their veins. So you sitting back talking about the Canaanite, he set up the Canaanite temple. It set up the Canaanite temple. He set up the pale-face temple. Then he changed it. I guess when he found out the information on it, he changed it to the Moorish Science Temple. They actually chased him out of, I think they chased him out of Chicago. I'm not quite sure, but he had to run, and then that's when he changed it to the Moorish Science Temple. But first it was called the Canaanite Temple, the Paleface Temple. So there's some deceit going on here, and there's some serious distractions going on here, you know. And Dan Calloway, thank you for, you know, bringing that to the forefront, man. I appreciate that, because I'm bringing it straight out. You know what I mean? That they're hiding some information here, man. Why did y'all hide the fact that his mother and father, I keep stating it because I need to know. Why did y'all hide the fact that his mother and father, his father was Cherokee and his mother was Washita Tanaka Indian? And another thing about Taj Tariq, man, you might not remember me, but I remember you. And I don't forget faces. I might forget names, but I don't forget faces. Back when I was going to school in Maryland, they took us to a trip to the Frederick Douglass house. And I remember you, Taj Tariq. I remember you. You know how I remember you? Because when I walked in there, it was a bookstore inside of the Frederick Douglass house. They took us on a trip to the Frederick Douglass house. Now, I'll never forget it. This was back in the early 90s. I seen a book called The Black Indians, and I was very intrigued by the book that I wanted to read the book. So I went and I purchased the book. When I went in there, I remember you, Taj Tariq, and you were sitting in the office in the back with the door open. And I remember you with the Indian suit on, with the long hair. I remember your hair, and I remember the Indian suit you had on with the Indian string tie. And I remember these two hybrid $5 Indians, females, sitting at the computer. So we was kicking it, and I was telling them how I had Indian in me, and before I found out that I was full-blooded Indian, I was telling them how I had I had Indian blood in me, and we were all talking and this and that and the other, and somehow we came across to me asking these $5 Indians, because I remember Taj Tariq, you kept looking at me, and I kept looking at you when you was in the office, and I was like, this brother is jet black, look like me. And he's sitting here with the Indian garb on with a string Indian tie on, the whole Indian get up, okay, inside the Frederick Douglass house, his Frederick Douglass actual house in Washington D.C. We went on a trip there, and when I asked these $5 Indians during that time, I didn't even, I was trying to figure the shit out myself. Why are these Indians sitting in here in the Frederick Douglass house? I brought the book. We start kicking the bobo, start kicking, I'm telling them I'm half Indian or whatever. During that time, that's the only thing that I knew. And they were talking about them being registered as Native Americans and this and that and the other. And I asked them, how can I get registered? Do you know? And I'll never forget it, Taj Tariq. I'll never forget what you did, okay? When I asked, how can I get registered, those two $5 Indians turned around as if I was not there anymore and started working on their computers and would not answer any more of my questions. And you got up from the table. I'll never forget, you got up from your desk in the office, walked out, looked at me, turned your back, walked outside the back door, because it had a window on the door, and you started smoking a cigarette. And y'all forgot totally, or at least allegedly tried to forget totally, of what I asked is, how could I get registered as Indigenous American? During that time, before the information started coming out, before the truth started coming out, I was saying, how can I get registered as a Native American? And y'all turned y'all backs on me and didn't answer any of my questions. And that truly hurt my feelings to the point where I was like, damn, I'll never forget that. Your jet black ass was in that thing with an Indian suit on, with a tie on, with an Indian tie on, and you had that long hair that you have now. Now you done switched it over to Moorish Science Temple. So you know what? There's a big deception, a big trickery going on. And you're not telling your people the truth. And that's what truly hurts. This is the problem that, true people that recognize their heritage as Indigenous American Indian. This is the constant betrayal that our people, these agents, are sent in deliberately to distract us and to deceive us into thinking that we're somebody else. Now, it's a lot of people that may not like what I'm saying, and I'm not knocking Noble Drew Ali or Timothy Drew. No, I'm not knocking him. You know what I mean? Because during that time, We needed that spiritual information. You know? But as far as all of this other stuff that y'all are doing, you know what? Y'all getting ready to go deep down and look, they already got y'all mapped out to a science, okay? The Moorish science temple, they already have that mapped out to a science. The government, I'm talking about the United States government. They already have it mapped out, and they already have, but this nationality thing and all of that, no. What's going to happen is they're going to label you as terrorists, okay? Which they're already doing. Don't believe me, check it out. Google it, check it out. Look at some of these places where they're already labeling you as terrorists. And that's a lot of our indigenous American Indians that are blind, that don't see themselves indulging in something that has nothing to do with your heritage. It has nothing to do with your heritage. But you know, niggas like to be hard-headed. You'll find out the hard way, okay? So peace and blessings to the collective. That's, you know, it's been on my mind. But, you know, like I said, I've been trying to fight this cold and everything, you know. But peace and blessings to the collective. And like I say, always, I'll get back to you guys real soon. Peace and blessings.